Hey everyone, welcome back to Technique Tutorial. This week I'm going over jumping progressions and sharing my top 3 tips in order to help you be more successful at gradually adding them back into your workouts in order to help you get back to running successfully. Oftentimes I find that running and jumping activities go hand in hand. Running is one of those sports where we need to be standing and supporting ourselves over one leg, and we're basically doing a single leg squat throughout the entire duration of our run. And that requires some shock absorbing and some bounce through our legs in order to be successful with that foot turnover. Jumping exercises, or plyometrics as they're most often known in the strength and conditioning world, are a great addition into our workouts when we're training for run-specific activities. However, jumping activities are often something that I find a lot of my mother runners tend to avoid or are fearful to participate in due to aches and pains, but especially leaking episodes. I totally get that. However, I also want to stress that if we don't practice some of those pieces, then we can never get better at them, and that doesn't allow us to reach our full potential as a runner. So how do we break this activity down in order to help you be successful in building it back up into your workout repertoire? So number 1, we need to break it down in order to slow it down so that the body has some space to relearn how to coordinate that particular progression well. So what do I mean by that? In this series, I'm going to use kind of a split stance lunge jump activity as my example to be able to give you some more concrete pieces to understand how I take a complex movement and then break it down into smaller pieces. So for example, a common exercise and strengthening exercise for running is the lunge. Oftentimes, we'll have people that are practicing and working their lunges into their fitness routine, and then they try to go straight from this into a split stance jump, okay? Going from what we call a static lunge, where my feet never leave the ground, to all of a sudden this dynamic split stance where I need to jump and shock absorb and organize myself over a narrow base of support. This is like level 5 in the progression, where the beginning lunge is level 1. We need to be able to have some progressions in between to build ourselves up to that more dynamic challenge. Often I find that my mother runners come to me where they've gone from step 1, but then they go straight to step 5 and they don't know how to break it down, and therefore feel that they can't do jumping successfully. So what do I mean by breaking it down? With that lunge type activity, I often start people with, yes, we need to be able to master a regular lunge. Then I like to start to progress it with, can we do a lunge and then can we step forward and practice transferring our balance and our weight from one leg to the other, preparing for that jump, okay? Then can we start to propel a leg up like we need to sort of do for running, but also for that switching of the legs midair, okay? And then can we add a little hop? And then eventually, can we split stance and practice that load, okay? So again, I've taken examples of how to break that more complex movement down into smaller pieces, and those different progressions would be something that I would recommend over multiple workout and strength sessions, incorporating that so that the body starts to get more familiar and more coordinated with that particular activity and layering it over time, okay? Number 2, use props for support. What do I mean by a prop? I like using a foam roller. You can also use a railing. You can use a chair, a countertop, something to give you some support, because often coordinating our upper body over our lower body is another really big challenge with jumping activities, and being able to learn how to progress that over time is a critical element in order to be successful. So if we're good at the lunge here, but we're having difficulty, let's say, with the progression of taking my leg up, or even the march, can I use a prop like this to let me come down, use it as I need to drive up to start to practice that balance, and then over time, can I start to lift my hand up off of that prop, but I still have it here if I need to grab it for support. And then layering onto that until I don't need that upper body support for the movement progression. Number 3, and my most important one, which I know I sound like a broken record, use your breath to help you execute your jump. So our exhale is the most helpful phase of our breathing cycle in order to help activate that pelvic floor and our core. So as we are challenging our body with higher level jumping progressions, slowing them down so that we can execute our breath a little bit more intentionally with some of those phases as we're relearning them is really helpful in order to create that most stable base of support, also to activate that pelvic floor and help it to contract and support, especially through the bladder support system, and also help us stay more organized with our rib cage to pelvis connection. So again, back to this lunge example, if I'm coming down here, I want to exhale as I come up, and then as I jump, and as I switch legs, so that's helping my body to coordinate more efficiently, utilizing that exhale strategy that enables my pelvic floor and my abdominal muscles to connect more efficiently in order to support all of those pieces of our jumping progressions. So to recap, my top 3 tips for helping to progress more complex jumping activities, back down into smaller pieces to build it back up. Number 1, break it down so you can slow it down. That way we have a better ability to understand where we're having trouble and being able to target those areas to build onto so that we're more successful with putting all the pieces back together later on. Number 2, don't be afraid to use a prop for support. We all need a little bit of help sometimes. Using these is important in order to help the system be able to execute it successfully and have more practice so that over time we can remove the prop and not need it eventually. And then number 3, use that exhale to your advantage. Blow as you jump, blow out as you switch legs. Play with that exhale to help you during the more challenging phases of your jump. That way, you'll be able to utilize that core connection most efficiently and start to help that system be able to execute as helpful as possible through your jumping in order for you to eventually be able to not even have to think about any of these pieces, but just execute it in your workouts without having to think. So I hope you guys found this helpful. Feel free to drop any questions or comments down below. I'd love to know what you guys took away and which of these 3 tips was the most helpful for you. And I look forward to sharing in our next video another technique tutorial next week. Take care, everybody.